The featured company is a paid client of Proactive Group Holdings, and this recording is disseminated by Proactive on its behalf.
This transformation in the digital infrastructure landscape is converting. I mean, that's the whole idea of your global network of tier one Bitcoin data centers into tier three supercomputing AI campuses.
Welcome back inside our Proactive newsroom, and joining me now is Frank Holmes. He is the executive chairman of HIVE Digital Technologies. And Frank, great to see you again. How are you?
Outstanding, my friend.
Good to have you along. I know that you hit another exahash number, and we'll get to that in just a second. But you also, in the latest news release, talk about finalizing the acquisition of additional space in Grand Falls, New Brunswick. So I know that you've got in Toronto, you've got other places. Tell me about New Brunswick.
Well, what's happening, Steve, around the world is that the Bitcoin miners were first to go and source stranded or surplus electricity and monetize it and create an economic value with it. And with that, they had to build the basic infrastructure of a data center they call tier one. And often they had to build a substation to go with that if you had like 100 megawatts. And today we're seeing in Texas, the largest data center spend in Abilene, Texas, like $500 billion called Stargate. That originally was a Bitcoin mining using flare gas, solar and wind surplus electricity. And so we were then looking at our assets like in New Brunswick and said, well, we've got 70 megawatts and we're Bitcoin mining. Let's go convert that. Because just starting from scratch can take you 3 years to convert from tier one to tier three. If you're already built the substation, it's much faster, 9 months versus 3 years. So we looked at that and we said, we're going to need more real estate. So we bought more real estate around our existing infrastructure of a campus of several data centers. And now we're going to build out for tier three. So it's this transformation in the digital infrastructure landscape is converting. I mean, that's the whole idea of your global network of tier one Bitcoin data centers into tier three supercomputing AI campuses.
Frank, we're talking about more than 25,000 next generation GPUs. This is not a small space, to say the least. Uh, Tell me a little bit about the demand for it. Where do you see the biggest demand? Is it coming from specifically in Canada, or is it elsewhere? How do these systems work?
Well, clearly, America's way ahead of the rest of the world, and synchronizing as a corporate strategy for a country is just taking longer. Canada has created an AI mission and data center mission, which is fantastic. But you can see that the big growth is open chat, and 70% of the $500 billion spend at Stargate in Abilene, Texas, is predominantly open chat. But now we have the other large language models like Claude. They're all growing in scale and perplexity, and we're seeing more and more corporations need it. So first of all, we have a transaction that's with Bell Canada, 4 megawatts in Manitoba, and that would be our GPU chips going in there in the next 3 or 4 months. And that will be the first real big boom in Canada. It'll make us the biggest by far. When you look at 70 megawatts over going through a transformation, it's epic. And if you mentioned about 25,000 GPU chips, these Blackwells are getting over $5 an hour. So you're talking about $1.3 billion to $1.5 billion in potential revenue once the data center is built and it's out there. The demand is big, and we don't see it slowing down. This is really what Jensen says is an industrial revolution is taking place.
Yeah, and still on track with Sweden and Toronto as well. Those are going well.
Yes, Bowdoin is going well. It's a big demand there. We're seeing that Microsoft is building 100 megawatts up in that neck of the woods. We've also seen what's interesting in San Antonio, where I'm based right now. Canadian pension funds have been investing in data centers in this area. This is a very big data center, tier three, tier four, because we're a military city and large for the NSA. So it's interesting to see that I think that money in Canada now can have an opportunity to invest in Canada for the build out in Canada, because Toronto clearly is the center for the PhDs in AI with the Nobel Prize winner a year ago. I think we now have another Canadian this year for economics winning a Nobel Prize for the significance of innovation, that you have to have innovation to really spur on economic growth.
Mhm. And lastly, Frank, I know we're getting near U.S. Thanksgiving. I know you have a milestone you want to reach. You've reached 23 exahash per second already in your latest release. So things obviously going well as far as the actual mining is concerned.
It is, and mining is more difficult than ever, but we're still pushing those 50% margins, which is healthy, and we're expanding at 20, we're at 23 exahash. And it's just very exciting to see that, and we'll redeploy that cash flow into more growth opportunities. As we mentioned, next year we're going to grow another 100 megawatts, which is another 10 exahash in Paraguay. So we have this huge growth profile, and then down the road, Steve, we're going to be turning a lot of this Bitcoin mining tier 1 data centers into HPC in countries like Paraguay. So we feel that we're riding this super cycle, and we trade on relative multiples that are very, very attractive.
Absolutely. Frank, thanks so much. Great to catch up with you. Really good update today, as always, and appreciate your time.
Happy investing.
All right, there's Frank Holmes, Executive Chairman of HIVE Digital Technologies.
The featured company is a paid client of Proactive Group Holdings, and this recording is disseminated by Proactive on its behalf. It is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, an offer, or a solicitation to buy or sell any securities. Viewers should conduct their own research and consult a qualified financial advisor before making investment decisions. The views expressed are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect those of Proactive Group Holdings, trading as Proactive Investors or its affiliates. No responsibility is accepted for any loss arising from reliance on the information presented.